Good morning. My name is Bharat Mediratta. I'm the co-founder, president, and CTO at Altschool. And I'm here to talk to you today about how we can transform education together. But before I dive into that, I'm just curious about the audience. How many people here are educators, by show of hands? How many of you, keep your hand up if you're an educator of children? Okay, great, a lot of educators. I am not an educator, I'm a technologist. But I enter into this work bringing my own perspective as a technologist and as a parent. So for the past 40 years, I have been passionate about technology. But I believe technology is a means to an end. Technology should exist to support and assist humans in their endeavors. Take myself for an example. I have type 1 diabetes. With the available technology 50 years ago, my life would be coming to an end now. But with the available technology today, I can look forward to another 20 good quality years of life. This is an amazing application of technology that is dramatically improving my life. I'm also a parent of 3 wonderful children. My son Cole, who's 17, a senior in high school, he's now taller than me, so I have to look up to him, which is a little odd. For those of you parents whose children have grown, you know what that's like. They begin to become adults. My daughter, Allie, is 15. She's very socially and politically active. She just joined the debate team, which is great because she really loves a good argument. And then my little guy, Remy, he's 4 years old. He's bilingual in German and English, and he's learning Mandarin in his preschool. And we believe being a member of the global society is important. So while I'm here today in Norway, he is with his mother in Hong Kong practicing his Mandarin. I believe that there are a great many things that we can do in this world, and I am not an educator, but I've somehow wound up the president and CTO of an education company. So how did this happen? Before Altschool, I was an engineer at a little company called Google, where I led the team responsible for making sure that Google search results were fast and reliable in all languages and all domains. I got the experience of seeing a humanity-sized technical solution where a huge fraction of the planet was using the software that I worked on every day. This was an amazing experience for me, and it changed the way that I think about what you can actually do with technology. When I left Google, I was fortunate to be one of the 10 most senior engineers in the company, and what that meant was that I could pick up the phone and call people in my industry, and they would take my call. So I took advantage of that, and I got to sit down with folks like Larry Page and Bill Gates and Elon Musk, people with tremendous capabilities in this world, and I got to ask them, what are you doing? What are you doing with these capabilities? And what I learned from conversation with them was that they are all focused on humanity-sized problems around 3 key understandings. The first is that we live in an increasingly global world. We are feeling the impact of 7 billion people on this planet, not just 7 billion people, but 7 billion people who are incredibly connected. This creates tremendous potential in the world, but it also, that degree of connection creates concerns and complexity. If people use that connection to just do Snapchat streaks, are we actually benefiting in any way? The second thing is change is accelerating. As we think about the future, this is a really important concept. 50 years ago, if I spent $1,000 on computing power, I could buy 1 calculation per second. Today, if I spent the same $1,000 US, I can buy an iPhone 10. This can do 1 trillion calculations per second. That's more than 1 million times the capacity of the technology that we used to put a man on the moon. So the rate of change is going up dramatically. And you can see the impact on our planet. Apple only introduced the iPhone 10 years ago. But now, we all have a digital computer with 1 trillion calculations per second in our pocket. Today in San Francisco, you see self-driving cars. You see machine intelligence powering everything we do, from automatically improving driving instructions to natural language processing. Last night, I was down at the harbor at a Norwegian restaurant. I do not speak Norwegian. I cannot read the Norwegian menu. But if I look through the lens of my cell phone, it will automatically translate for me in real time. Didn't get everything exactly right. But if it could do that today, at this pace, what will it do tomorrow? What will it do 10 years from now? And if you really want to see a scary number, look at 2045, when $1,000 buys you more computing capacity than the combined brain power of everyone on the planet. So, if you think about this, by around 2023, computer thinking will be cheaper than human thinking. That means if you're an employer and you're spending your limited resources to do something, it will be more economically efficient to use a computer to think and act than it will be necessarily to employ a human for many types of actions. As a parent whose children are entering the workforce in 2023, this opens up some deep and troubling questions for me. As entry-level jobs are getting displaced, what does this mean for my children to be a contributing member of society? And what does it mean in 2035 when my little guy enters the workforce? That's a very different world. So as I went through my exploration, I came to a concrete understanding. We need to be preparing our children for an uncertain future world where machine intelligence becomes a very dominant force. So how do we do that exactly? We need to help children learn the things that make them uniquely human. We need to help them learn to do jobs that require compassion and require creativity. And it's not just me, it is all students. All students need this opportunity. So in my learning as a technologist, I came to the understanding that we need a new model of education. This is a tall order. There's 1 billion students on the planet. A new model of education is an incredibly big challenge. But we've done it once before. We transformed education from our agricultural pre-industrial model to the industrial model. We went from localized productions, mixed age in a single school, single classroom, to the industrial model of many students, medium quality because you have emerging outcomes but there's still variability, but low flexibility because high student-teacher ratios. So we've done this once before, and the question is, what do we do now? The common approach for technology is to say, well, let's jump forward to technology. You can see that curve. Technology can solve this problem. But an iPad is not an educator. An iPad cannot teach a student. Maybe the software on the iPad can teach the student. But if you simply hand your child an iPad and walk away, they're experiencing the same loss of agency that I did as a student, simply with the developer as controlling their experience as opposed to an educator. And this does not get us there. What we need is a model of education called the learner-centric model. And what is this? The learner-centric model is a model that puts students at the center of their own learning. This is not my innovation. This is not Altschool's innovation. This is building on top of a huge body of work done by a team called Education Reimagined, innovative education leaders who have articulated what great learning could look like. They define it as one that is competency-based, where each learner works towards goals, sets goals, works towards them to develop competency and then mastery in skills and dispositions necessary for the future, where education is personalized, relevant, and contextualized. So it's about the student. It's relevant to the student's life. It is contextualized for their own needs, where learners have agency and are active participants in designing and engaging in their own experience of learning, where learning is socially embedded and rooted in the community, and, in fact, maybe most relevant at a Smart Cities convention, where learning is open-walled, where it happens throughout the community. It is not confined to the school, but it takes place anywhere that new experiences can happen. If we can build this model and we can support it by technology, we can bring along technology alongside to accelerate it, we can create a massive, powerful change in the world. So this is the next transformation in education, from the mass production, medium quality, low flexibility of the industrial education model to the mass personalization, high quality, high flexibility of a network of education in the learner-centric model. So I've talked a little bit about the problem, the future, the uncertain future. I've talked a little bit about the learner-centric model of education. Let me tell you a little bit about the Altschool story. First, why Altschool? We have 4 key beliefs. We believe that this is an important problem. This is a problem that affects our entire species. We believe that the learner-centric model of education is necessary. Is it the best model of education? We don't know. But is it better than what we currently have? Absolutely. We believe that educators play an essential role. Educators are key to making this work when supported properly by technology. And finally, we believe this model of education should be available to all children. So, what are we? Altschool is a for-profit education company, but we are a very special type of for-profit education company. We are a mission-driven public benefit corporation. This is a very special construct that allows us to place the needs of our mission on the same level or ahead of the needs of financial responsibility. And we have a vision of the future where we can enable all children to achieve their potential. We are not alone in this vision. We are not the first. We are not the only ones. We are joining a large and growing movement towards learner-centric education with partners like Education Reimagined and OECD and Students at the Center. We want to work together to solve this problem. So at Altschool, we undertook the mission to make the best education the most available. And this resonates for me as a technologist because at Google, I was making the best information the most accessible. If we can make the best education the most available, we can enable children to achieve their potential. So we took a unique approach. We are not ed tech per se. We are ed plus tech. We hired a team of deep educational domain experts, and we hired a world-class team of technologists, and we brought them together under one roof. Then we invested deeply into R&D to understand not only how to refine the practice and the model of education, but how to have technology properly support it to help accelerate this model. We created a way to do this by starting our own schools and operating our own schools, where educators and technologists can work together, where technologists are embedded in the classroom, working with students, working with individual educators. But this is not where we stop. Our mission is to bring this to all schools and to all children. So we moved beyond our own lab schools, and we are bringing this to partner schools currently in the US. We have 25 partner schools who are now using our platform to accelerate their own progress towards a learner-centric model of education. So you've heard me mention a platform. Why do we need a platform in education? What is the value of this? Let me illustrate. What if your child had the opportunity to go to the best school in 1900 or the average school today? Which one would you choose? If you look at the numbers by matriculation rate, it's kind of obvious. The best school in 1900 had a much higher matriculation rate than the average school today. But what if I asked you that same question in healthcare? What if your choices were the best hospital in 1900 versus the average hospital today? The answer there is also pretty obvious. The best hospital today is over 100 times better in many highly valuable key ways. So why is it that healthcare can do what education can't and improve at this rate? It's because healthcare sits on a platform of shared knowledge and pharmaceuticals and infrastructure and devices, and in the healthcare system, they invest 25% into that platform and 10% overall into R&D spending. And that makes the 75% that's spent directly at hospitals and doctors and nurses and staff much more valuable. But in education, the numbers are very different. In education, only 10% of spending goes into common infrastructure, shared content, software and training, connectivity and devices, and only about 1% of overall spend goes into R&D. 90% of the spend happens at the school level, supporting educators directly, which is great for that school, but it doesn't help all schools, and it doesn't translate. What's missing here is the glue to tie it all together. So we have built a platform. Our platform combines the power to plan, engage, evaluate, and understand students in a learner-centric way. And we combine that power with the flexibility to work with all types of schools and all types of content. And then we sit on top of a massive amount of educational resources and technologies that are part of this movement because we don't want to do it alone. We want to do it with the ecosystem. So our platform supports the transformation of schools to the learner-centric model of education and helps them accelerate. The picture on the right is one of our lab schools in New York, and this is a typical day for students working together on their own projects. So what does it look like to be a partner on our platform? Let me start with the Odyssey STEM Academy. They're focusing on being open-walled, and they have a really cool model. Students spend 3 days in the classroom, but then they spend 2 days doing internships on the job in the community. They can reflect their learning and align what they're doing towards the real-life, practical, relevant work that they're doing in the job. But on top of that, the people they work with in their internship can also use the platform to capture evidence of their learning, to demonstrate that what they're learning in school is relevant in the world, and to show evidence that they're actually moving towards competency. Or take, for example, Design 39. Their student-driven, competency-based model is an exemplar in the US. They are probably one of the most innovative schools in the US. But their goal is not to develop a competency-based model for themselves. Their goal is to bring their competency-based model to the world. In using our platform and building their model on top of our platform, we can now make their model accessible to anyone who wants to follow their lead, simply by joining us and doing it on our platform. And then Arcadia Unified School District. This is a public school district of about 10,000 students that is really focused on learner agency. Our platform makes it easy for students to set their own goals and have students and educators work together to make sure that they are moving towards competency in their goals, both independently and in small groups, and then they can document the work that they do, share it with their educators, share it with their parents and guardians. The work at Arcadia has shown that, first, seeing is believing. Within a school district, a small number of educators using this platform and having an amazing experience can catalyze the system. We've found a massive uptake in many of our engagements as people see that it works, understand how to use it, and really, really want to get on board. We've had exponential growth in just the last 6 months in Arcadia, going from a pilot to a full district engagement. 5 years ago, we opened our own small lab schools and started to do R&D. 2 years ago, we opened our platform to public, charter, and independent schools in the US. And I'm pleased to say, and our first 25 partners now represent 5,000 students on our platform, getting an amazing learner-centric education. Over 400 educators in our platform, sharpening their practices, sharing knowledge with each other. And by 2020, our goal is to support hundreds of thousands of students on this platform as we begin to try to transform education. This is a super exciting time for us, and I believe it's a super exciting time for education. So the future is coming. We are not yet prepared for it. We have a big problem ahead of us, and to solve it, we're going to have to go very far together. There's an old African proverb: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Well, we have a long way to go, but if we learn together, we can make this happen. Thank you.